they're not certain of which way the battle is going in Bakhmut, aware that perhaps they may have to fall back.
We've learnt the geography of Ukraine over the past year as different places have become hotspots for the fighting. We focused on Kharkiv, Mariupol and Kherson. Now attention is on Bakhmut. Russia may be about to finally capture the city, but at a cost of tens of thousands of troops. Jerome Starkey is the defence editor of The Sun. He's been near the Ukrainian defensive line in Bakhmut. He joins us down the line from a train in central Ukraine, so the connection may wobble, but we're going to give it our best. Jerome, great to speak to you. How are you doing?
Good morning, Steve. Very well. How are you?
Not bad at all. So, Bakhmut, I've seen pictures of it, and it looked like a sort of dystopian place, a sort of place where the bombs have fallen and wreckage is all that is left. What's your experience been of the place?
Well, you're absolutely right. The images of Bakhmut are just a hellscape, and one of the accounts we hear of the soldiers who've been in there is it's getting harder and harder for them to fight because there's less and less for them to live in and to take cover in. As they're trying to maneuver. I mean, the Russian way during this war has been to destroy what they can't capture, and we saw that in previous places. We saw it in Mariupol, we saw it in Severodonetsk, and to some extent we saw it in Lysychansk. As you said, I was with troops who are on the front lines on one of the pincer movements, the southern flank, or also rather the western flank of the southern pincer, if that makes sense. And of course, there things were slightly better. The supply routes for those troops were much easier, but nonetheless, conditions, pretty tough for the soldiers in the trenches. Very cold, very muddy, and very noisy. I mean, the noise was really the thing that I'll take away, because that's the sheer volume of artillery that's going in both directions. And it's not just the heavy long-range artillery. We saw troops using automatic grenade launchers. Now they've got a much shorter range to give you a sense of how close to they're engaging the Russian forces. And I think the mood among the soldiers was one of resignation is perhaps the wrong word, but certainly they're not certain of which way the battle is going in Bakhmut, aware that perhaps they may have to fall back.
Oh, that's interesting. And you say you're in a trench and there's artillery overhead. Did you feel that you were in the First World War? I mean, we all read about the First World War, but none of us have any experience of it. Did you think, oh God, this is I'm sort of back to how wars were fought 100 years ago?
There's definitely an element of that, and in fact, one of the soldiers I met, a chap called Artem, kept on making that comparison himself. I think, the soldiers feel that themselves. I mean, in one sense, that's the immortal thing, is that the timeless thing about this conflict is that ultimately the means that people use to kill other people haven't changed an awful lot. I mean, they fly further, the explosions might be bigger, but ultimately it's about, hiding from hot shards of metal if you're on the defense, and it's about finding your enemy with hot shards of metal if you're attacking. And so, yes, I mean, it does feel like previous wars. It does feel like something out of history, and it feels like clearly its own chapter of history as well.
Why are they fighting over Bakhmut? I mean, we mentioned that people kind of know the geography, but just explain to us, what's the significance of this, if any?
Well, Bakhmut is a town that used to be home to about 70,000 people in the eastern Donbass region. Donbass, of course, the area that President Putin sort of made his top priority to try and conquer once he had retreated from Kyiv in the first phase of the war. So this is his sort of reduced second objective. But when he did do that, we saw Russia concentrate its military might in the Donbass. Are keen to stress that it doesn't have any major strategic importance. Unlike nearby Kramatorsk, where we were based for the last couple of weeks, it doesn't have a railway line. It does sit on a junction of a few roads. Now, President Zelensky has recently said that were Bakhmut to fall, then the road to the rest of Donbass is open to Russian forces. Now, I think he may have been speaking, metaphorically, but he's also trying to justify the decision to keep soldiers in there for so long, because that decision is.
Right. Yeah, Jerome, I think we're just losing
His top military commanders.
Yeah, Jerome, I think we're just losing Jerome there, but we got a big chunk of him, so I'm very grateful to that. He's been in Ukraine on and off since the beginning of the war. He really does know his stuff, and he does put himself on the front line. He's been there in Bakhmut, and if you've seen pictures of it, it really is an extraordinary sight because it's winter, it's destroyed, and it looks like something from The Road. You know, it just looks like a ruined place. And Jerome has been there. That's Jerome Starkey, the defence editor for The Sun.
It is 12.